Hello, I'm Ollie, and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, given that it's June, I'm doing the mid-year freak-out tag. So this is one of those tags that I think is a bit of a staple of BookTube. It's my first June on BookTube because I think I started my channel in September of last year. So it's the first time I've done this, but everyone seems to be doing it. So I thought I would jump on the bandwagon and do it too. So this is basically, if you've not seen anyone else's versions of the video, it's just like your mid-year assessment basically of how things have gone so far. Okay, so first question, what is the best book you've read so far this year? And that is going to be, for me, from this lovely Library of America edition, The Oxbow Incident by Walter Van Tilburg Clark. I loved this book. It was so subtle, so beautifully constructed, so gripping and exciting, despite the fact there wasn't a lot of action in it. And had a great message at the heart of it as well. So I really, really enjoyed that. And having said that, I also really enjoyed Shane, which I've read as well from this volume. I haven't read the second two books in the volume yet, but I'm intending to before the end of June. So this book may end up, this whole book may end up being my favourite book of the year. But yeah, certainly in terms of individual novels so far, The Oxbow Incident was just brilliant. Next up then, best sequel you've read so far in 2022. So for that, my answer is going to be The Heretic by Liam McIlvanney, which is his sequel to The Quaker. So this is a detective novel set in, I think, 70s Glasgow, which was just brilliant. So I really enjoyed the first one when I read that. I enjoyed this one even more. And what it does brilliantly is it really builds cleverly on the foundations that the first book built. And what it does is, so it's the same detective in it, but it takes place like 10 years later. So his life has moved on and changed. The city has moved on and changed a lot. And he does a great job of both it being like a character portrait of the detective, but also a portrait of the city, and how it has transformed, and like the politics that are going on in the city and things like that. So I thought it was an absolutely fantastic book. Okay, so next question is a new release that you haven't read yet and you're looking forward to. I can't remember if this came out right at the end of 2021 or in 2022, but it's Cruelly Yours, Elvira by Cassandra Peterson. So Cassandra Peterson is the actress who plays Elvira, and the book is supposed to be absolutely wonderful. So I really want to read that. I'm tempted to buy it in hardcover, but it comes out, I think, in October in paperback, so I might wait for the paperback and get it at that point. Next one then, so your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So this is Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. So I really liked My Heart is a Chainsaw. It was one of the first reviews I did on the channel actually, and I just love that book to bits. And I might even reread it in the run-up to Don't Fear the Reaper coming out. So it's like a slasher novel. But yeah, really, really looking forward to reading the sequel. Can't wait for that. I love the central character of My Heart is a Chainsaw. Next one, biggest disappointment. I've actually listed 3 books for this, which is terrible, isn't it? It makes it feel like I've had a really bad reading year. It's actually been a fantastic year so far. So, biggest disappointment. So, the Kaiju Preservation Society by... Oh, God, I've forgotten who it's by. That's terrible, isn't it? It will come to me. So, John Scalzi. So, lots of people really raved about this. And I liked the central idea, which is that there's a group of people who are... like a conservation society, but they look after kaiju, and it was funny and it was reasonably exciting, but it just didn't in the end it just felt like it didn't come together properly as a story. So I know loads of people out there really, really loved it, but yeah, for me it just didn't work at all, and it was a book I was really looking forward to reading because it sounded like it was a lot of fun. Another one is Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough. So I loved Behind Her Eyes, Sarah Pinborough's book from a few years ago, and this promised to be, a similar mix of kind of thriller and something a bit more otherworldly, shall we say. But yeah, it just felt, the twist at the end just fell completely flat for me, and I didn't enjoy that at all. And then another one is Privileged Conversation by Evan Hunter. So Evan Hunter is also Ed McBain and is my favourite writer. I read Privileged Conversation, which is kind of a psychological thriller by him from, I think, the early 2000s. And there were parts of it that I really liked, but the ending just it just kind of fizzled out at the end. It had a lot of promise, but the end was just a complete damn squib, and I didn't enjoy it at all. So yes, that's 3 for that question from me. So yeah, sorry if it was a bit of a downer, wasn't it? But okay, moving on then. So biggest surprise. So for this one, I'm going to say Jack of Spades by Joyce Carol Oates, which is a book I grabbed from the library just because I've read a couple of things by Joyce Carol Oates which I liked. Well, one kind of early novel of hers, which I think was called Revenge of the Spider Monkey, which was pretty good, and then a short story by hers which I really, really liked, which was in that Shirley Jackson tribute collection that Ellen Datlow did. When Things Get Dark, it was called, the collection. So I picked up, they had a copy of one of her books, Jack of Spades, in the library, and I picked it up thinking, and it looked like a sort of fun suspense book, but it was really, really good. So it was about a writer who has like an alter ego. So he's like a fairly straight-laced writer of crime books, but he has this alter ego, Jack of Spades, who writes these nasty, brutal, kind of noirish books. And it's about him trying to reconcile the two halves of his psyche, basically. So it was a lot like Stephen King's The Dark Half, but went in a completely different direction. And it was just absolutely fantastic. And it's one of those books I've kept on thinking about since I finished it. So yeah, Jack of Spades for that question. Newest fictional crush. So this is a weird question. I know lots of people are into fictional crushes, but I'm not really one of them. And I've quite enjoyed watching booktubers of some kind of similar vintage to me, like Michael K. Vaughan, kind of screwing their faces up a bit at this question. So my answer, I did actually come up with an answer for this. So my fictional crush is the mum in Shane by Jack Schaefer, whose name is, I did check what her name was, Marion Starrett. So she is like this kind of wonderful, solid, so she's supposed to be beautiful, but she's also just really practical and solid and reliable, and you know, probably a bit of a cliche in terms of womanhood, if you like, in that she's, you know, she stands by her man, but she's really interesting because there's this whole kind of unresolved romance that goes on in the book as well, where she is clearly attracted to Shane, this mysterious gunfighter, and it's, you know, about how she reconciles that with her love for her husband. So I thought she was a really fantastic character, and she sounds quite kind of feisty and hot too. So yeah, the mum from Shane. So I'm showing my age there. Okay, next one then. Where have we got to? Newest favourite character. So this is Shell Scott from Bodies in Bedlam by Richard S. Prader. So Shell Scott is like a 50s cheesy noirish detective who gets all the babes and solves all the cases. He was just really fun to read. So the book was just really cheesy, really colourful, really entertaining. He's a like Hollywood-based story. I really enjoyed the book, but Shell Scott is just, he's like a parody almost of that kind of hard-boiled detective character. So I really, really enjoyed him. So I'm looking forward to reading more Shell Scott books soon. Okay, next one, book that made you cry. It didn't actually make me cry. I haven't read any books this year that made me cry, but a book that moved me deeply was Shockaholic by Carrie Fisher, which is one of her books and memoirs. And it was very open about her struggles with mental illness, and the fact she'd had electric shock treatment, so that was quite moving. But then the end of the book, which is about her relationship with her father, and her kind of, you know, reconciling with her father in the final years of his life when she was looking after him as he was, you know, basically terminally ill, was incredibly moving, really sweet, really lovely. And yeah, it didn't make me cry, but it was very, very moving. Okay, next one, book that made you happy. So I've talked about this one in my top 5 English novels. So The Secret Lives of the Sex Witches by Anne Bilson was just such a gloriously enjoyable, saucy romp. It just made me grin from ear to ear as I read it. Hugely entertaining. I really, really liked it. So most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. So I was tempted to say the two. So I've got 2 of the Elric Saga books from Saga Press, the lovely editions. Unfortunately, they're both behind these piles of books, and I couldn't be bothered to disassemble these stacks in order to get to them. So I'm going to go with this lovely Library of America book, Women Crime Writers of the 1950s, so 4 suspense novels from the 1950s. So I've got a ton of these Library of America books for my birthday, like this one, the Western. Most of them have this Well, most of them actually. I don't know if I've got one to hand. Most of them have like a black and white photo of the author on the cover, and then this kind of red, white, and blue band across them. And they're quite boring, most of the covers. But I think this one is really lovely. It's really lovely cover design. I love the artwork. So yeah, this is my favourite. I think apart from the Elric one might just pip it to the post, but I can't be bothered to get that out, as I say. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I can't think of any, to be honest with you. I don't need to read any books. I'm going to read a load of the books that are around me, and no doubt other books that I haven't even bought yet, plus stuff that's on my Kindle. So there's a ton of stuff I'm looking forward to reading. I don't feel like I need to read anything. There's a few books but there's definitely books I want to read. There's series I want to continue reading. I've just realised I missed a question, actually. I'll come back to it. So there's definitely books and series I want to continue reading and things like that. But yeah, there is not there's no books that I feel like I have to read by the end of the year. So the question I missed was, where was it? Question number 7. So who's your favourite new author of the year? So that is Matt Wesolowski, author of the Six Stories series of books. So I've read the first, I can't remember if I've read the first 3 or 4 of these now. There's 6 of them in total to date. I'm not sure if he's continuing after the 6th one. But they're just really great. So I have talked about them on the channel before. I did a review of the first one, but they're told in the format of a podcast. So they're kind of mysteries, but with a bit of a supernatural element as well. And as I say, told like a podcast. So you get interviews with different people who've been involved in some past mystery as the podcast host tries to unravel what's gone on. They're just such fun. They're really well written. They're quite creepy, just absolutely brilliantly entertaining. So yeah, I'd not read any of them before this year. I had a load of them on my Kindle, and then got the 6th book, the most recent one, in one of my Abominable Book Club boxes, and that spurred me on to read the first few that I had on my Kindle, and I love them. They're really, really good. So yeah, thoroughly recommend those. So yeah, that's me done. I'm not going to tag anyone because it's just one of those time-based tags that people do. And apologies for getting the questions in the wrong order, and for not being bothered to get the Elric book out. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know how your 2022 is going so far. Let me know some favourites you've read this year. But yeah, as always, hope you're safe and well. Hope you're really good stuff, and I will speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.